Welcome all. Yesterday at around 1 p.m, the Armenian Defense Ministry reported that Azerbaijani forces crossed the state border in the southern region of Syunik. This resulted in the Armenian side suffering casualties, including 12 soldiers taken prisoner and 14 at the moment unaccounted for. So where does Armenia go from this? I'm joined now by CivilNet host and analyst Eric Hacopian to discuss this. So Eric, welcome back. In the last few weeks, we saw dull intentions and rumors were swirling about a possible future agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and other events took place too. A lot of Azerbaijani officials, for example, stopped using the term Western Zangezur to refer to Syunik. And then yesterday we saw an invasion into Armenian territory. So what factors do you think led Azerbaijan's leadership to this decision?
Well, first of all, Azeri leadership is Aliyev. Aliyev is Azerbaijan. So let's not mince words. This is him. His motivations are probably multiples. The first one, what happened yesterday, the invasion happened because they could. They have the advantages, we have the weaknesses, and there's no punishment for being the aggressor. So they did what people of his ilk do when those conditions are there. Secondly, the more immediate, this is probably linked to whatever didn't happen on November 9th, which was whatever was going to be announced, demarcation, whatever was agreed to that didn't happen on November 9th. They're probably upset about that because there were probably terms that were favorable to them and unfavorable to us. Third, they're probably still demanding some kind of an enclave. And not an enclave, sort of a access road to Nakhchivan that they control, which no Armenian government will ever agree to. And if they agree to it, they will fall in 5 minutes. And the other thing, which is somewhat missed, is their blackmail capabilities on the highways is being eliminated because over the next week or months, as the alternative roads become much more upgraded than they even are now, they don't have the ability to blackmail us on the north-south corridor through Syunik as the alternative roads are being built, and those roads are pretty much going to be abandoned. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have their guards, and they can be muscling no one and taking tribute from no one. So that is going away. So I suspect it's some combination of these four factors that led to yesterday's illegal invasion of Armenia.
And the Armenian government and the Ministry of Defense is now reporting that the situation in Syunik is relatively calm. But isn't the issue that the Armenian government has little agency? They simply cannot guarantee that this won't happen again.
No, well, as a practical matter, from what we know, the situation is calm. Fighting has stopped. We know that. Beyond that, as far as the Armenian military is concerned, they have been lying to the whole entire country pretty much every day since September 27th. So anything that they say, you should only believe things that they deny. So systematically, neither the military or the state has any credibility on this issue. Frankly, very, very few people believe them. And they really have, at this point, no capacity to prevent this from happening again. So what they say, frankly, doesn't really matter much.
And Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan recently dismissed the Defense Minister Arshak Karapetyan, who had been in the job for a little over 100 days. He was replaced by Deputy Prime Minister Suren Papikyan, who is seen as a close ally, an old-time ally of Pashinyan. Many analysts believe that Karapetyan's dismissal was due to his handling of the crisis in Syunik. So, with that in mind, not a good start for Mr. Papikyan.
Well, no, it's a hell of a first day. But I think these are somewhat red herrings. First of all, the defense minister, for example, was not in charge of the border and the day-to-day running of the army. That's not how the structure works. It's the Army Chiefs of Staff and the Army Chief of Staff that actually runs the army on a day-to-day basis. So if anyone should be fired for incompetence, it should be the Army Chief of Staff and not the Defense Minister. So this is somewhat of a mystery. I have no idea about whose fault it was. Obviously, the fault belongs to the immediate people who are responsible for it. Now, if other people are being punished, some of that is politics, symbolically. When you fail, the defense minister goes, even technically, that's not their responsibility. But frankly, all of these are distractions. This is really about, the prime minister's political future. It rides on this issue. There's many other factors which are going, and they're going on their own. The economy, other factors that are sort of taking care of themselves. However, this issue, he either handles this issue, he either becomes our Neville Chamberlain, or he becomes our Churchill. He either becomes the appeaser that is constantly giving away to an enemy who, like Hitler and Saddam and others, has an endless appetite and will take until you force him not to take. So his job is you either rebuild the military, you upgraded the military immediately to create a situation where aggression is punished. And if he does not do that, he will slowly become the Armenian Neville Chamberlain, and we know what the end of that is. He needs to rally the country, he needs to unite the country, make rebuilding the army the first, second, and third priority state. We need to build a garrison state now. Not tomorrow, not 6 months from now, now. And in that way, he can succeed. And if not, I don't see how any government survives these type of actions and events if they happen once every few months.
And Armen Grigoryan, the secretary of Armenia's Security Council, was on TV yesterday saying that Armenia is preparing or will apply for assistance from Russia, which is Armenia's strategic ally. Later, when the ceasefire was brokered, it was described as Russian mediated. So I'm wondering how you see Russia's role in this.
Well, I think Russia's role in this is, to put it in simple terms, imagine an elementary school yard in which there's a guard. And the guard's job is to separate people. And the more the guard separates people, the more useful the guard becomes to all parties. And the guard's authority is based on the ability to keep the peace at whatever cost. And in almost every instance, you just tell both sides to cut it off, even if one side started it. So that's the general outline. As far as the Sesto agreement that compels Russia to defend Armenia's territorial integrity, it's very clear that in May, the Russians said that minor incursions do not fall under this category. Now, that's frankly ridiculous, but it is what it is. They get to dictate the terms. And what they're telling us and what that they're telling the other side is, if your incursions are minor enough, we will not engage. And they have no reason to engage. They do not want to engage fully on our side against the other side, because they clearly lose leverage with the other side if they become party to us. So is it correct? Is it morally upstanding? No, it isn't. But those are the realities that we need to deal with. Fundamentally, we need to solve this problem. And this constant asking and begging of others to defend us is frankly humiliating, rather than focusing on the job at hand, which is to build structures that we know we can build to defend the country.
And when we see statements and reactions from international organizations, human rights groups, international media, foreign countries, the OSCE group even, for example, that describe it as a border clash, that describe it as two countries in a conflict, the term both-sidism is being used quite often. And of course, calling on both sides to de-escalate. What do you think when you hear that?
Well, when I heard these yesterday, I just sort of, I try to transport myself to April 24th, 1915. What would the headlines have said? And what would have these people said on that day? If there was an EU, I can see the EU urging to Turks to be humane in their evacuation of Armenians, and the US urging both sides not to escalate the situation. So we need to be clear about what these are. In any political struggle, it is always important to attack and destroy the neutral party's neutral words. because neutral words are the road to hell. You know, Stalin's gulags were re-education camps. Armenians were evacuated into the desert. You know, Jews were evacuated for their own safety. We know where this leads. So we need to attack imprecise language. And we need to be very clear. When people use imprecise language, for example, like the EU did, like the United States did, and other parties, and the press, they are not being neutral. They are taking the Azeri side. They are taking Aliyev's side. For example, when the EU says both sides need to de-escalate, they were taking the Azeri side. They were taking Aliyev's side, probably the worst dictator in Europe. That's the side that they were taking. So we need to be very clear about this. And I'll give you a perfect example of this hypocrisy. If 3 Russians hunting for ducks walk into Ukrainian territory from Russia, within 5 minutes, the EU and NATO would denounce it as these are the Russian green men that have invaded Ukraine. Yesterday, thousands of Azeri soldiers, Aliyev's gunmen, crossed international boundaries and attacked another country, another UN member country. And that is actually the highest form of it's the highest crime in international law is aggression. That's what the Nuremberg trials were for. And these people said nothing. So when this thing repeats itself 6 months from now, they are responsible for this because they did not define this as it should be defined.
And finally, Eric, you briefly mentioned, but can you explain what you think the Armenian side should do now?
Build the army, rebuilt the army, and built the garrison state. The Russians are very clear that they will not protect us in these situations, minus a large invasion. The United States and the EU are utterly useless on such matters. It is our job to rebuild our military capabilities. Because when you're dealing with regimes like Aliyev's, they only understand one calculation. Are they stronger than you are, or are you stronger than they are? Until he thinks he is consistently stronger than our side is, he will act this way. Once every 4 or 5 months, you take another mile here, you take another kilometer there, while the world says nothing. Until the day where, and I hate to be crude, it's the body bag, measure. The day that he thinks that enough of his gunmen are going to be brought back to Baku in body bags, that's the day that he will stop. People like Aliyev, people like Saddam Hussein, people like Hitler, these people understand one thing, it's the language of force. Everything else is conversation. We're either rebuilding our military night and day, focused on this and building the garrison state, or we're going to be getting more and more of this on a daily basis.
Okay, well, Eric, thank you very much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
And continue following CivilNet on the latest in the situation in Syunik.